Yo, 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 people and patrons of the night, it is your boy, the Horrorlander, and today I'm going to be doing a discussion video talking about my Goosebumps bucket list. Now, what do I mean by a Goosebumps bucket list? Well, let me explain. So this bucket list is going to be me talking about story ideas, book ideas that I want to see adapted into the Goosebumps IP and franchise. Stuff that R.L. Stine can write about. Now, there is two caveats to this bucket list of mine. First of all, I'm not going to be giving you guys entire plot lines. I'm not going to be reading out plots or story ideas that I came up with. This is going to be me giving basically general settings, general gimmicks, general themes that I think the Goosebumps books have not touched upon or not had a solid entry in, or maybe they've unofficially, had maybe something in there, but nothing official. And the second caveat is that I know I've talked about in the past that what I would like for the franchise is after R.L. Stine retires, we could basically make it like an open IP where a bunch of different authors, several authors can be brought in and contribute stories and contribute books with Goosebumps slapped on them. So there's the idea that these ideas can be done in case they do an open IP by other people. But I'm kind of prioritizing R.L. Stine as the guy who could write some of these before he decides that he wants to retire, either in the near future or maybe later. And basically, the reason why I'm doing that is because if you would have told me during Slappy World about my bucket list, I probably would have been hesitant and been like, no, I don't think R.L. Stine's ever going to give us something close to these. But then we got House of Shivers. And House of Shivers has been showing off some cool stuff. It's not been a perfect series by any means, nothing great. But, with the scariest book ever, even though I thought that first book was just decent because of some other problems, the setting of Wayward Forest, all that creature feature action, the crazy stuff, I genuinely loved all that, the creature feature wildlife monster action that we got involving Wayward Forest. And the most recent 3 books from House of Shivers, I've thought that they were all good and they made me happy, which was Night of the Living Mummy, The Last Sleepover, and also One Night at Camp Bigfoot. And One Night at Camp Bigfoot has arguably one of the best climaxes in any Goosebumps story. I mean, R.L. Stine made Bigfoot an actual threat. An actual threat, people. Just like Thanos. That puts a smile on my face. It's a big feat. No pun intended. So yeah, that's the caveats for my bucket list. Otherwise, let's get into it. I'm going to be talking about the different types of Goosebumps stories and books that I would like R.L. Stine to write an entry for before he retires, just so I can feel like the Goosebumps IP has touched on all the different major big stuff that it can do. And of course, this is all my opinion. This is all stuff that I enjoy, and I'll be talking about my inspirations behind my picks. But let me know down below in the comments, what are some of the items on your Goosebumps bucket list that you would like to see, and why do you feel that way? So without further ado, let's get into the video.
Put your hands together, cover your eyes, getting ready for a big surprise. Spirits in a bottle, ghosts in the machine, walking on water, floating on a dream. Who's fooling who can you believe? Do you think you're gonna lose it? Are you sure what you just see?
The first entry on my Goosebumps bucket list is the most possible one. This one is plausible due to some things that I'll explain, and that is the Loch Ness Monster Goosebumps book. Give us a story featuring the Loch Ness Monster, Champ, Nessie alike. I think this one is possible because this is the second most famous cryptid in the world next to Bigfoot, and we just got a book about Bigfoot. And matter of fact, in the beginning of One Night at Camp Bigfoot, the main protagonist, Harper, who is a cryptid monster fan, talks about lake monsters and stuff, and she actually talks about the Loch Ness Monster and Nessie for quite a bit, like a few paragraphs or so, in the One Night at Camp Bigfoot beginning chapter. So, R.L. Stine there is acknowledging and talking about the Loch Ness Monster, Champ, Nessie, you name it. I think there are like a few kids horror type of stories that have the Loch Ness Monster / Nessie in it. I know Joe Hill has a short story called By the Silver Waters of Lake Champlain, who basically has a group of kids who are in there dealing with, Champ or Nessie. There's a Strange Matter book that I think has to do with the Loch Ness Monster. So there's a real chance that this could be a thing. And I would like it, man. I would like to see the Loch Ness Monster be given a story. And Stine has been doing a good job so far with the more adventure feeling type of Goosebumps books. You don't really see him doing modern stuff that's like, scary or horror focused. If you have Night of the Living Mummy, That one is an adventure one. One Night at Camp Bigfoot, that's an adventure type of story. And even though Scariest Book Ever, had some creepy elements to it, it still felt like kind of an adventure. So he's good with that. So I think the Loch Ness Monster can lend room. And I think this one is genuinely possible. The Loch Ness Monster is so famous, it's going to be hard for me to believe that Stein is not considered a story idea for that. So that's my first pick on the bucket list. The next item on my Goosebumps bucket list is the only sequel that is on my entire bucket list. I don't really put too much weight or I guess interest into sequels. I've just never done so. If there is a sequel that comes out for a book that's not had one, or maybe very few entries, cool. That's cool. I'll read it. I don't actively think about sequels and stuff just because Goosebumps is an anthology series, and I like when Stein does his more standalone stories and standalone books, with of course some exceptions like when he does do a good sequel. But the one franchise in Goosebumps that I do want an extra sequel for, because it's already had 2 sequels, and the main reason I want it is because it has a lot of potential, all right? And it's part of a subgenre that I love, and it literally has the most potential and most, room for different types of stories involving it compared to any other franchise in Goosebumps, because you don't have to follow one particular order or one particular plot line or anything. And that is Deep Trouble. Deep Trouble is the one book franchise in Goosebumps that I would like another sequel for, because ocean horror, aquatic horror, is one of my favorite subgenres in all of the horror genre. I love stories dealing with aquatic horror and the ocean and different bodies of water, and Deep Trouble has room to go down a lot of crazy routes, a lot of crazy places. And the reason why I thought about Deep Trouble is because I've seen a lot of cool ocean stuff that I've been experiencing. I read all the Dead Bait short story collections, which are 4 books in the adult horror series, Dead Bait, that all feature around aquatic horror short stories, lakes, rivers, oceans, you name it. I also read all these different Tim Curran books that you can see here, Dead Sea Chronicles, and plenty of other short stories which all deal with good ocean horror stuff and aquatic horror. So give us Billy Deep going on another adventure. You literally have the sky, or in this case, the bottom of the ocean, as the limit. You can do all types of crazy fun stuff. And, Deep Trouble is one of the few series that, even though it's an adventure focused, book series, there's plenty of scary moments, horrific moments, high tension, moments, because the fact that the ocean is a scary place, the fact that bodies of horror have fear of the unknown, and all different types of weird things you can find. And Deep Trouble actually has room to include in 2 of my bucket list entries. We just talked about the Loch Ness Monster. I would like a Loch Ness Monster Goosebumps book, and if it's a standalone, that's fine. But you could literally make it into Deep Trouble 4. You could have Deep Trouble 4, where Billy Deep and the cast are going after the Loch Ness Monster, Champ, Nessie, or maybe running into it and dealing with it. And there's another entry that I'll cover in a bit, which also has room to cover and bring in the Deep Trouble cast. So yeah, Deep Trouble's the one on my list. You have a bunch of different ideas and options, and I think I'll be talking about some of those possibilities with my next item. So let's go. The third Goosebumps bucket list item I have is a prehistoric Goosebumps book entry. Now, you can see why I picked this. I mean, if you guys love Jurassic Park movies, if you love Jurassic World, the new movies that have come out, if you've read, a bunch of different maybe adult horror books that deal with people getting blasted back to the past, there's a few kids horror entries that have, prehistoric horror in it. Like I know Graveyard School has a book about dinosaurs and stuff. Again, I bring up Tim Curran. I've been reading stuff about him that has to deal with prehistoric horror. I read a short story collection called Prehistoric about, dinosaur short stories, and one of his stories is in there. He has a new book coming out called Cave. Cave has to deal with basically a dinosaur from what I can see on the cover. So the possibility of kids going back to the past and dealing with prehistoric wildlife is really cool. And it's not just the land that you can do stuff with, like, Tyrannosaurus Rex and Spinosaur and all those different things. You can also look at the ocean aspect, the aquatic aspect, because there was a lot of aquatic horror, type of monsters out there, sea monsters basically, reptiles and stuff that were out in the ocean. Like you have the mosasaur, which you'll recognize from Jurassic World. You have the megalodon. The megalodon is used in plenty of different horror books and movies out there. Literally, there's the Meg, which is, two movies about the megalodon. Um, you have like pleurodon. You have plesiosaurs. Plesiosaurs are those long neck marine reptiles. Plesiosaurs is literally what Loch Ness Monster and Champ and Nessie are. They call them different names, but they're basically plesiosaurs that are spotted in the modern age because people think they still exist. So yeah, you could do, a bunch of different cool stuff involving the age of the dinosaurs and that stuff. And I brought up Deep Trouble before. This was the concept that you could have, Billy Deep in the cast go back to the prehistoric oceans, and there they have to deal with stuff like the mosasaur, the megalodon, Lipleurodon, plesiosaurs, all these different types of crazy stuff. A lot of prehistoric, marine wildlife that would absolutely put them on one crazy adventure, but also make them really badass and really cool for coming out alive and dealing with all those things. So that would be the next pick on my bucket list. The fourth entry on my bucket list for Goosebumps would be a weird Wild Western Goosebumps book. Now, the Wild West is a setting that's been used in plenty of adult horror. Again, some of my favorite authors out there have plenty of entries and plenty of stuff involving the Wild West. But in terms of kids' horror, it's quite rare. And it's rare, but it's not been done before. Okay, there's actually 3 separate entries of Wild West kids horror books. There's a Strange Matter book dealing with the Wild West, which I think is called like the Weird Weird West or something. You have an Are You Afraid of the Dark book from the 90s book line called The Tale of the Phantom Riders, I believe, which has to do with the Western setting. And you have a, quite unknown kids horror movie out there that's actually, I would say, very good. I had a lot of fun with it, called Phantom Town, which is basically featured in a Wild West setting. And that movie, if you watch it, I think it's free on Tubi or free on Roku. You can go look up like Phantom Town free movie online or something and watch it. It literally feels like something you would see out of the 90s Goosebumps show. It has the same type of aesthetic, the same type of budget and looks. So if you're a fan of that, you should go check out that movie. The main character, one of the main characters, is also the main protagonist in the Bone Chillers TV show. That kid who looks like the slap chop guy, he's in this movie. So it's been done before. But for Goosebumps, we've not had, a Wild Western setting, a weird Wild Western. So I feel like that would be cool to do. You have plenty of different stuff you could do with the Weird Wild West. I mean, I've read plenty of horror stories and I've seen movies that literally do all types of stuff like werewolves, witches, ghosts. There's one that I specifically get reminded of because, I've seen the Native American legend and I've seen a few authors who actually do this type of creature. It's a folklore creature from Native American lore called the Thunderbird. You could use the Thunderbird. The Thunderbird exists. That's a thing that, you could use in a wild western setting out in the desert. Plenty of different stuff that you can do. The Weird West has a lot of room. You could even use aliens. I've seen weird western stories that have aliens, all types of crazy stuff. So I feel like Stein, it would be fun if we get to see him do a Goosebumps book featured during that setting. Kids time travel, they get sent back. Probably most realistically, it'd be something involving ghosts. So that's cool if you get like a ghost town or something. You also got voodoo and all types of other supernatural occult stuff. You got skinwalkers, you got wendigos. Literally, again, one of those things where there's a bunch of different story ideas and plot lines that you can do. So yeah, go ahead and give me a weird Wild Western Goosebumps book. I think it'll be pretty fun. And it'll definitely be novel because we've not seen something like that in Goosebumps before. The next entry on my Goosebumps bucket list is a crazy carnival story. Give us a crazy carnival mainline Goosebumps book. I say mainline because we have Escape from the Carnival of Horrors and Return to the Carnival of Horrors. That's in the Give Yourself Goosebumps collection. And you also have Nightmare on Clown Street, which has crazy clowns. It has a carnival circus setting, but you focus a lot on the circus. Carnival's just bits and pieces. And I feel like we could get a mainline book really focused on a carnival. If you guys know about the book, and also I think there's a movie, Something Wicked This Way Comes. I think that's the title. That one is basically featured with the carnival. So you have plenty of different options involving, a carnival book, a carnival story. You could literally do a bunch of different wild stuff with it, but I feel like us getting a carnival mainline book would be fun. Maybe you can even take some elements. Stein could go back to some of those GYGs, probably look at some of the things that were done in them if he cares enough. and try to bring some similar stuff over to a mainline book. But yeah, it's a setting that I definitely think would work for a mainline Goosebumps book, and we've pretty much had it unofficially, bits and pieces here, so might as well just go through and make an official entry. Second to last on my Goosebumps bucket list is a movie theater based Goosebumps book. Now, this has unofficially been done. If you look at the novellas that R.L. Stine put out that are basically unofficial Goosebumps stories, especially one of them, which I will talk about right now, that was pretty much confirmed it was supposed to be the last book of Series 2000. Adventures of Shrinkman, it deals with the movie plot line that the kid has to go to a movie theater. And you also have Zombie Town, which is a movie theater based story. But they were never officially stamped with Goosebumps. They're still novellas. And while you can pretty much consider them to be, unofficial Goosebumps books, and one of them basically confirmed, they never got that official title. So I'm going to give room to give us into a movie theater type of Goosebumps book. And there's plenty of ideas for that. I know R.L. Stine is a fan of a bunch of different horror movies. He's a fan of EC Comics, so I'm sure that he can come up with a bunch of different ideas involving a movie theater, movies coming to life and stuff like that. I think there's even a GYG called Invaders from the Big Screen, so that's another movie theater-based story, which most likely he did not write that one. It's probably ghost-written, but still lets you know that we've kind of been teased this setting, but we never got an official entry. And there are other movie theater kids horror stories out there. One of the most famous is from Are You Afraid of the Dark, called Midnight Madness, which is a fan favorite. You have from The Haunting Hour, Creature Feature. You also have the Strange Matter book, which I think deals with the drive-in theater or something, which is Creature Feature, because that book got turned into the Haunting Hour episode, but the episode did in name only, but it actually came from a Strange Matter story. And you also have a Spine Tinglers book that I think is called Lights, Camera, Die. So this stuff has been around in kids horror. Might as well have an official Goosebumps book with it, and no doubt do I, feel that it can be a fun time, because movie theater settings are kind of like a soft spot for me. I love going to the movies. I love going to movie theaters, and a lot of the time stories involving that always end up being pretty fun. And I'm actually reading an adult horror short story collection right now called It Came from the Multiplex 80s Chillers, which has to do with all horror short stories featured with movie theaters, drive-in theaters, and those cheesy B monster movies and slashers and stuff. So yeah, again, sky's the limit. You could do a bunch of cool ideas with this. And the final entry on my Goosebumps bucket list is us getting a scary alien Goosebumps book. I say scary alien because R.O. Stine, anytime he writes about aliens, most of the time, minus Body Squeezers, which I think is the closest we've ever gotten to a scary alien stuff, all the time he writes aliens, they end up being really goofy, really cheesy. It'll be some dumb shit, like a mushroom head that, farts out of his armpits. He always makes them goofy, whether they be twists, like, in Attack of the Jack-O-Lanterns, you have Camp Nightmare, you have My Best Friend is Invisible, you have books like Please Don't Feed the Weirdo, Haunting with the Stars, Brain Juice, you have that story from Triple Header 1, thing called Teenage Sponge Boys from Outer Space. They all end up being goofy. But there's plenty of scary alien horror stuff out there. I mean, have you seen the John Carpenter movie, The Thing? Have you seen the movies about the xenomorphs, those aliens? Have you seen Predator? Have you seen Independence Day? There's a lot of scary alien stuff. I'll literally show you two of my favorite Tim Curran short story collections. Literally all about scary ass aliens that are nightmare fuel and can pose big threats. There is endless options, and there's so many authors who always write about scary aliens, even in kids horror. Strange Matter has had scary alien books, which I can flash up on the screen, which I've read, Plant People and also Fly the Unfriendly Skies. There's plenty of different people who have done creepy entries with this, and yet R.L. Stine always manages to make it super goofy, not at all scary. Even a new Frightland book I read called Why I Don't Sleep on Feather Beds, that one is a scary alien story. So R.L. Stine, it's time for you to stop playing around, stop giving us that goofy comical alien stuff, and give us some actual threatening aliens, some actual scary alien action, because I feel like you need to make up for it, because you've always made aliens a giant, laugh. You've never made them actually threatening. It's always been some E.T. ripoff or some whoopee cushion goofy stuff, in the words of Horror FFA, who told me that yesterday. Literally whoopee cushion type of aliens. Not at all cool. So yeah, those basically my bucket list. Those are all the different ideas that I would like to see as Goosebumps books. Again, I'm hoping R.L. Stine could do it before he retires, but maybe if he passes the baton, somebody else can take it on and make it. But I feel like after these are made, I would be satisfied with Goosebumps. I'd be like, okay, I saw everything we needed to see. I saw all different types of ideas. The whole entire umbrella has been covered. So now we're pretty much good with whatever else drops. So let me know again down below in the comments, what is your bucket list? What are items that you want to see? And if you want to support this video, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and stay tuned for more content to come. But that's all I got for today. So signing off now. Deuces.